Hi there, I'm Shane and thanks for joining me back in my shop. Today I'm working on a desktop. It's a 10-foot long top and it's built completely out of 4/4 white oak hardwood. Now, I want it to look like it's 1.5 inches thick, so I'm going to show you in this short video how to build it the thickness of any furniture top. This could be particularly useful when you're building up things like a countertop or desktop where you don't really need the thickness for strength because it's supported by a structure underneath. But you might want to balance it out aesthetically so that it gives a slightly thicker appearance. So, with a couple pieces of trim and some of our Festools, we'll get to work on this.
So I'm just applying the glue now. My top is, I've jointed the pieces separately so it's pretty straight. If you haven't done that beforehand, or if you're somehow when you glued it up, it comes out not straight, I would definitely use a track saw or a router on a track to kind of straighten it out for you attached to trim. I'm also putting glue on the trim piece right now. You just only have to put enough glue so that it will go up to the thickness of the top. So I'm just going to line it up. The important thing to remember is that if anything, to go above the surface and not below it, because we're going to flush trim this shortly anyways. So I'm just going to make that clamp tight, and then I'll make sure everything is aligned properly. Try to get it as flush as possible. You're probably wondering why I don't just use some dominoes and align this. Well, I actually can't because I'm going to put a pretty big edge profile on this later, and you'll see in a second. If I put the domino there, it would show after I route. So that is a no-go. So I'm just going to tighten down the clamps. So you can see now that our trim piece is all glued up on this right side. Using just parallel clamps. And I've got a scarf joint cut here. Now the scarf joint will allow this piece to kind of mate seamlessly with the other piece. Just a quick note on these scarf joints here. They're not the best for gluing because it's not entirely long grain, but they're not terrible either. It's not like it's just end grain. Because it's cut at a 45-degree angle, there's still some long grain surface. So what I'd like to do here is just put a little glue on the joint, and I'll give it just put a thin layer and I'll let it dry. And after it dries, I'll put on a little bit more glue. Because the end grain is a little bit more porous, we like to seal it up. And once it's sealed up, the glue bond will be a little bit better. Now this is not really a crucial joint anyways, because it's the long grain of the joint that's going to hold it all together. So once it's dried, see it's no longer tacky. But I know that I've sealed up a lot of this end grain, so the glue bond will be a lot better now. So then I'll just put on a little bit more glue, and then we'll just put the two pieces together. You might think this is a pretty simple technique, and it definitely is. We're just gluing up a piece of trim. Let's show you some of the applications of the OF1010 when it comes to trimming down, flush trimming this. And then we'll also show you how the OF14-100 does with a larger profile round over bit. You'll be pretty amazed at how the dust collection works on that. Alright, the glue's dry, so we're ready to cut. I've got the OF1010 router set up with the edging plate. This is going to help us run the flush trimming bit horizontally. This is very easy, very safe. We can hold this just like this, and this will trim off the excess material that's protruding above the surface of the top. Okay, I'm going to do my edge trimming with a 3/4 inch round over bit. It's a pretty big bit, so I'm using the OF 1400 router. I'm going to show you how to set it up. I'm going to take 3 passes. I'm going to use a depth stop turret to help us set the depth for the 3 passes. Now what I'll do up here is loosen up this handle and drop this all the way down to the lowest setting on the turret. So this is a pretty huge bit. You can see it's going to cover a nice round over edge. I don't want to beat on mine, so if you look at the cutting edge here, I'm going to set it just above the top here, and I'll lock down the handle. You'll see 3 heights here. This will allow us to take different heights of passes. So if we start at the very top, and I probably won't use this one because it's so high, you'll see that the bit barely cuts anything away. Now if we go to the second setting, this is where we'll take our first pass. And then finally, if we go back, turn this to our lowest setting, this is the full pass. So I'm going to take 3 passes. The first pass with the second turret height, and then I'll go somewhere in between and then clean it up with the final pass. With this chip catcher attached, you'll see this router is incredible at dust collection. Larger diameter hose will work better with the OF 1400. If you think about it, I'm basically cutting away a 3/4 inch quarter round, and that's a lot of wood. And lastly, since it's a larger bit, I'm going to dial its speed down just a little bit, maybe to 4.5. Okay, I swept up the floor over the last 2 routing operations, and this is how much we're left with. This, to me, is pretty incredible, and if you've used any other router that doesn't have the dust collection capability of the Festools, you'll know how groundbreaking this is. This not only saves me cleanup, but mainly my air is way cleaner, because I don't have all these particles scattered all over the place. And this fell right underneath where the top was. Now, if you look from the top, you'll see after the round over is cut, it's far less obvious that this is a glued on piece because the round over bit has blended it in so that you don't see as much as the change in the grain. So after a little sanding and finishing, this will look pretty much perfect. Lastly, let's take a look at our scarf joint. You'll see that it's very tight, no big gaps, and so I think it's a pretty good joint here. See, after the round over is cut, this looks a lot different, which gives it a more seamless look. Well, I'm going to get busy sanding down this top now. Thanks a lot for joining me in the shop, and I hope this is a helpful video. I'll see you next time.